When my husband Marcus called me an unemployed burden during his sister's wedding reception, what he didn't know was that I had been running a multi-million-dollar digital marketing empire from our spare bedroom for the past 4 years. The look on his face when I casually mentioned my company's latest acquisition, a 7-figure deal that closed while he was giving his speech about supporting family members who refused to contribute, was absolutely priceless. Before we jump back in, tell us where you're tuning in from, and if this story touches you, make sure you're subscribed, because tomorrow, I've saved something extra special for you. The morning light filtered through the sheer curtains of our downtown Phoenix apartment as I sat cross-legged on our king-sized bed, laptop balanced on my knees, responding to emails from clients across 3 different time zones. The gentle hum of the air conditioning mixed with the distant sounds of early morning traffic created the familiar backdrop to what most people would consider an unconventional work environment. My husband Marcus was already in the shower, preparing for another day at Henderson & Associates, the mid-tier accounting firm where he'd been climbing the corporate ladder for the past 6 years with the methodical determination of someone who believed success came only through traditional pathways. I closed my laptop and stretched, feeling the satisfying tension release in my shoulders after 3 hours of managing campaign launches, reviewing analytics reports, and coordinating with my team of freelancers scattered across the globe. Phoenix Digital Solutions had grown far beyond what I'd ever imagined when I started it as a side project during my final semester at Arizona State University. What began as helping local restaurants optimize their social media presence had evolved into a comprehensive digital marketing agency serving Fortune 500 companies, tech startups, and international brands seeking to establish their presence in the American market. The irony wasn't lost on me that my most successful business relationships existed entirely in the digital realm, while my most important personal relationship was deteriorating due to a fundamental misunderstanding about the nature of my work. Marcus emerged from the bathroom, his sandy brown hair perfectly styled and his tie already knotted with the precision that characterized everything he did. He possessed the kind of conventional handsomeness that opened doors in corporate environments, combined with an analytical mind that made him excellent at identifying inefficiencies and solving complex financial problems for his clients. "Another early morning at the computer?" he asked, his tone carrying the familiar note of disapproval that had become increasingly common over the past year. The question wasn't genuinely curious about my work but rather a passive-aggressive observation about what he perceived as my inability to maintain normal business hours or professional boundaries. In Marcus's world, real work happened in offices with established hierarchies, scheduled meetings, and measurable outputs that could be easily quantified and understood by others. "Just coordinating some campaign launches," I replied, choosing my words carefully to avoid triggering another lecture about the importance of work-life balance and professional development. The campaign launches I was coordinating included a nationwide product rollout for a major automotive manufacturer, a rebranding initiative for a tech company preparing for their IPO, and a crisis management strategy for a pharmaceutical company dealing with negative publicity. Each project represented months of strategic planning, creative development, and careful execution that would generate more revenue in a single quarter than Marcus earned in an entire year. Marcus straightened his cufflinks with the deliberate movements of someone preparing for battle in the corporate arena where he felt most comfortable and confident. His success at Henderson & Associates was genuine and hard-earned, representing years of dedicated effort to master complex tax codes, build client relationships, and navigate office politics with skill and diplomacy. The promotion to senior associate that he'd received 6 months earlier had validated his approach to career development and reinforced his belief that professional advancement required visible effort within established organizational structures. "I still think you should consider looking for something more stable," he said, adjusting his tie in the mirror with practiced efficiency. The suggestion had become a recurring theme in our conversations, delivered with the patient tone of someone who believed repetition would eventually convince me to abandon my entrepreneurial pursuits in favor of traditional employment. Sarah mentioned that her company is hiring for marketing coordinator positions. "The benefits package is excellent, and you'd have regular hours and predictable income." Sarah was Marcus's colleague at Henderson & Associates, a competent professional who had successfully transitioned from freelance graphic design to corporate marketing after growing tired of the uncertainty that characterized independent work. Her journey from entrepreneurial struggle to corporate stability had become Marcus's preferred example of how creative professionals could achieve real success by embracing traditional career paths. What Marcus didn't understand was that my journey had taken the opposite trajectory, evolving from traditional employment expectations toward entrepreneurial success that exceeded anything a corporate marketing coordinator position could offer. "I'm doing fine with my current work," I replied, maintaining the diplomatic tone that had become necessary for discussing my career with my husband. The understatement was so dramatic it bordered on absurd, given that Phoenix Digital Solutions had generated over $3 million in revenue the previous year, but explaining the true scope of my business success had proven impossible without triggering Marcus's defensive mechanisms about his own professional achievements. The fundamental disconnect in our relationship stemmed from Marcus's inability to comprehend business models that didn't conform to traditional corporate structures. His understanding of marketing was limited to the basic advertising and promotional activities he observed at Henderson and Associates, where marketing meant designing brochures, maintaining the company website, and coordinating participation in professional conferences. The sophisticated digital strategies, data analytics, and international client relationships that formed the foundation of my business existed entirely outside his conceptual framework for legitimate professional work. Marcus kissed my forehead before heading to the kitchen for his carefully portioned breakfast of steel-cut oats with precisely measured portions of berries and nuts. His morning routine was as methodical as everything else in his life, designed to optimize nutrition and energy levels for maximum professional performance. The discipline and consistency that made him successful in his accounting career were admirable qualities that had initially attracted me to him during our junior year at Arizona State University, where we'd met in a business ethics class that neither of us had particularly enjoyed. Our relationship had begun during the final semester of college when both of us were focused on launching careers rather than finding life partners. Marcus had already secured his position at Henderson and Associates through a carefully executed internship program that demonstrated his analytical skills and attention to detail. I had been accepted to several graduate programs but was increasingly interested in the digital marketing projects I was developing as part-time work to fund my education. What started as study sessions and casual coffee dates had evolved into a relationship based on shared ambitions and complementary personalities. The early years of our marriage had been genuinely happy, characterized by mutual support for each other's professional goals and shared excitement about building a life together in Phoenix. Marcus's steady income from Henderson and Associates had provided financial stability while I experimented with different approaches to building my business, and my creative perspective had helped him think more strategically about client relationships and business development. We had functioned as an effective team, each contributing different strengths toward common objectives of professional success and personal happiness. The problems had begun gradually as Phoenix Digital Solutions grew beyond what Marcus could categorize as a hobby or side project. His initial support for my entrepreneurial efforts had been based on the assumption that I would eventually transition to traditional employment once I had gained some experience and built professional credentials. When it became clear that my business was not only sustainable but increasingly profitable, Marcus struggled to adjust his expectations and understand why I wasn't pursuing what he considered more conventional career advancement. The first major conflict had occurred 18 months earlier when I'd turned down an interview for a marketing manager position at a large healthcare corporation that Marcus had arranged through his professional network. The position offered an impressive title, comprehensive benefits, and a salary that Marcus considered substantial evidence of professional achievement. My decision to decline the interview in favor of focusing on my existing clients had confused and frustrated him in ways that revealed fundamental differences in how we understood professional success and personal fulfillment. "I don't understand why you won't even consider opportunities that could advance your career," Marcus had said after I'd politely declined the interview. His confusion was genuine rather than manipulative, reflecting his sincere belief that traditional employment represented the pinnacle of professional achievement. The idea that declining a corporate position might actually represent a strategic business decision rather than fear a professional challenge was entirely outside his conceptual framework. My attempts to explain the financial and strategic advantages of maintaining independence had been interpreted as defensive rationalization rather than legitimate business analysis. Marcus's understanding of entrepreneurship was limited to small retail businesses and service providers who struggled with inconsistent income and lacked the security of corporate benefits. The concept of a digital services company that could operate profitably without traditional infrastructure or hierarchical management seemed too abstract to be considered real business activity. The situation had been complicated by the fact that most of my work was invisible to casual observation, conducted through video conferences, collaborative software platforms, and digital communication tools that left no physical evidence of business activity. Unlike Marcus's daily routine of commuting to an office, attending meetings, and producing tangible deliverables that could be easily understood and evaluated, my work consisted of strategic thinking, creative problem-solving, and relationship management that occurred primarily through digital channels. Phoenix Digital Solutions operated as a fully distributed organization with team members located across North America, Europe, and Asia, connected through sophisticated project management systems and communication platforms that enabled seamless collaboration across time zones and cultural differences. The virtual nature of our operations provided tremendous advantages in terms of cost efficiency, talent acquisition, and operational flexibility, but it also made the business difficult to explain to people who associated legitimate work with physical offices and traditional organizational structures. My typical workday began at 5:30 in the morning with a review of overnight developments from international team members and clients in different time zones. European markets opened while Phoenix was still sleeping, creating opportunities for real-time collaboration that required early morning availability. Preparing and narrating this story took us a lot of time, so if you are enjoying it, subscribe to our channel, it means a lot to us. Now back to the story. The quiet hours before Marcus woke up had become some of my most productive time, allowing for focused strategic work without the distractions of daytime communications and urgent client requests. The spare bedroom that served as my office had been carefully optimized for productivity and professional video conferencing, with high-quality lighting, acoustic treatment, and multiple monitor displays that enabled efficient management of complex campaigns and client communications. The space looked professional during video calls but could be easily dismissed as a hobby room by anyone who didn't understand the sophisticated technology and strategic frameworks that supported my business operations. Marcus finished his breakfast and gathered his materials for another day of client meetings and financial analysis at Henderson & Associates. His leather briefcase contained the proposals, spreadsheets, and legal documents that represented tangible evidence of professional activity in ways that my laptop and digital files could never match. The physical nature of his work products made his professional contributions easily visible and understood by family members, friends, and social acquaintances who could readily comprehend the value of tax preparation, financial planning, and business consulting services. "I'll probably be late tonight," Marcus said as he checked his appearance one final time in the hallway mirror. "The Morrison Group wants to review their quarterly projections, and you know how detailed they get with their questions." His tone carried the satisfaction of someone whose expertise was regularly sought and valued by important clients, whose professional reputation was built on years of consistent performance and measurable results. The Morrison Group was one of Henderson & Associates' largest clients, a family-owned construction company that had grown into a regional powerhouse through decades of careful financial management and strategic expansion. Marcus's role in optimizing their tax strategies and financial structures was genuinely important work that required sophisticated understanding of construction industry economics and regulatory compliance. His pride in the relationship was justified and represented the kind of professional achievement that could be easily explained and appreciated by anyone familiar with business operations. "Take your time," I replied, already mentally organizing my afternoon schedule around a presentation to potential new clients in the pharmaceutical industry who were considering a comprehensive digital transformation initiative. The presentation would be delivered to executive teams in New York and London simultaneously through advanced conferencing technology that enabled interactive collaboration across continents. The potential contract value exceeded Marcus's annual salary by a factor of 10, but explaining the opportunity would require detailed exposition about global market penetration strategies that would likely be dismissed as unrealistic fantasy. After Marcus left for work, I returned to my office to begin the more intensive phase of my daily routine. Phoenix Digital Solutions managed campaigns for 37 active clients ranging from local businesses seeking to expand their digital presence to multinational corporations implementing complex marketing automation systems. Each client required customized strategies, ongoing performance monitoring, and regular communication to ensure optimal results and satisfaction with our services. The pharmaceutical presentation had been in development for 6 weeks, involving detailed research into regulatory compliance requirements, competitive analysis of existing digital marketing approaches within the industry, and strategic recommendations for reaching target audiences while maintaining adherence to strict advertising guidelines. The complexity of pharmaceutical marketing required specialized expertise that commanded premium pricing and long-term contractual relationships with clients who valued sophisticated strategic thinking over simple tactical execution. My team for the pharmaceutical project included a regulatory compliance specialist in Toronto, a data analytics expert in Amsterdam, a creative director in Los Angeles, and a project manager in Chicago, all coordinating through cloud-based platforms that enabled real-time collaboration and shared access to project resources. The distributed nature of our organization allowed us to leverage specialized expertise regardless of geographic location while maintaining cost efficiency that traditional agencies couldn't match. The morning passed quickly as I reviewed campaign performance data from the previous week, identifying optimization opportunities and preparing recommendations for client strategy sessions scheduled throughout the afternoon. Phoenix Digital Solutions had developed proprietary analytics frameworks that provided deeper insights into consumer behavior and campaign effectiveness than standard industry tools, giving our clients competitive advantages that justified our premium pricing and contributed to exceptional client retention rates. One of our automotive clients had achieved a 47% increase in online sales conversions following implementation of our recommendation to redesign their customer journey mapping and optimize their mobile experience for younger demographics. The results had exceeded their internal projections by such a significant margin that they were expanding our engagement to include their entire product line rather than the single vehicle model we had initially been contracted to support. Another client in the financial services industry had experienced similar success with a thought leadership campaign we had developed to position their executives as experts in cryptocurrency and blockchain technology. The strategic content distribution had generated over 2 million impressions across professional social media platforms, resulting in 17 new high-value client acquisitions and invitations to speak at industry conferences throughout the upcoming quarter. These kinds of measurable business results were what separated Phoenix Digital Solutions from the countless amateur marketers and small agencies that competed on price rather than strategic value. Our clients paid premium rates because our campaigns generated substantial return on investment through sophisticated understanding of digital consumer behavior, advanced analytics capabilities, and creative execution that captured attention in increasingly crowded marketplace environments. The financial success of Phoenix Digital Solutions had been steady and dramatic, growing from $12,000 in revenue during the first year to over $3 million annually by the fourth year of operation. The growth had been achieved through careful reinvestment of profits into technology infrastructure, talent acquisition, and strategic partnerships that expanded our capabilities and market reach. Unlike many entrepreneurial ventures that struggled with cash flow and operational challenges, my business had maintained consistent profitability while scaling operations to serve increasingly sophisticated clients. The success had been personally fulfilling but socially complicated, particularly within my marriage where Marcus's inability to understand or appreciate the scope of my achievements had created increasing tension and resentment. His persistent suggestions that I pursue traditional employment felt dismissive and insulting given the financial and professional success I had achieved through independent business development. The disconnect between his perception of my work as a casual hobby and the reality of managing a multi-million-dollar operation had become a source of constant frustration. Marcus's family had initially been supportive of my entrepreneurial efforts, treating them as an interesting creative outlet that complemented his more traditional career path. His parents, Robert and Linda, had built comfortable middle-class lives through conventional careers in education and government service, and they viewed entrepreneurship with the mixture of admiration and skepticism common among people who had achieved security through established institutions. Their support was genuine but condescending, offered in the spirit of encouraging creative pursuits rather than recognizing legitimate business achievement. The situation had become more complicated. As Phoenix Digital Solutions grew beyond what could be easily dismissed as a side project or creative hobby, family gatherings increasingly featured conversations about Marcus's professional advancement and achievements while my business success was either ignored or minimized through polite questions that revealed fundamental misunderstanding about the nature of digital marketing and entrepreneurial business models. Marcus's sister Jennifer worked as a human resources coordinator for a regional hospital system, and she had become increasingly vocal about her concerns regarding my lack of traditional employment and the financial burden this supposedly placed on Marcus. Her criticism was delivered through carefully worded observations about the importance of both partners contributing equally to household expenses and long-term financial security. The irony that I was actually contributing significantly more to our household finances was lost on Jennifer, who measured professional contribution through job titles and organizational affiliations rather than actual income generation. The family dynamics had reached a particularly uncomfortable point during a recent dinner at Robert and Linda's house, where the conversation had focused extensively on Marcus's promotion to senior associate and his expanding responsibilities with high-profile clients. When someone had politely asked about my work, Marcus had responded with a vague description of marketing consulting that made my business sound like occasional freelance projects rather than a substantial commercial enterprise. "It's nice that you have something to keep you busy," Linda had said with the kind of patronizing smile reserved for children's art projects. Her comment reflected the family's collective understanding of my work as a harmless creative outlet rather than serious professional activity. The idea that my business might actually be more financially successful than Marcus's traditional career was simply outside their conceptual framework for how achievement and contribution should be measured. The pharmaceutical presentation was scheduled for 2 o'clock Phoenix time, which meant that the London participants would be joining at 10 o'clock in the evening their time, demonstrating the international scope and importance of the potential engagement. The client had specifically requested our expertise because of our proven track record with regulatory compliance and our ability to coordinate complex campaigns across multiple international markets simultaneously. I spent the remainder of the morning reviewing regulatory guidelines and competitive analysis data, ensuring that every aspect of our proposal would meet the strict standards required for pharmaceutical marketing while delivering the innovative strategic approaches that differentiated our services from traditional advertising agencies. The presentation would include detailed case studies from similar clients, proposed campaign timelines with specific milestones and deliverables, and financial projections showing expected return on investment based on our proprietary analytics models. The potential contract value exceeded $800,000 for the initial 12-month engagement, with opportunities for expansion into additional product lines and international markets if the pilot campaign achieved projected results. The financial magnitude of the opportunity represented more than Marcus earned in 2 years of traditional employment, yet explaining this to him would likely trigger defensive responses about the uncertainty of freelance income compared to the security of corporate benefits and guaranteed salary progression. As the presentation time approached, I changed into professional attire suitable for video conferencing with executive teams who would be evaluating our capabilities against competing agencies. The transformation from casual home-based work clothes to polished business professional appearance was part of the daily routine that maintained credibility in client relationships while working from a home office environment. The pharmaceutical executives were precisely on time for the presentation, joining from conference rooms in New York and London with additional participants connecting from offices in Frankfurt and Toronto. The international scope of the call reflected the global nature of their business operations and their need for marketing partners who could coordinate sophisticated campaigns across multiple regulatory environments and cultural contexts simultaneously. The presentation proceeded smoothly through our strategic recommendations, case study examples, and proposed implementation timeline. The client questions were sophisticated and detailed, reflecting genuine understanding of digital marketing complexities and appreciation for the strategic framework we had developed specifically for their regulatory environment. Their level of engagement and the depth of their follow-up questions indicated serious interest in moving forward with our proposal. "Your approach to compliance monitoring and reporting is exactly what we've been looking for," said the marketing director from the London office. "Most agencies treat regulatory requirements as obstacles to creative execution, but you've developed frameworks that actually enhance campaign effectiveness while ensuring full compliance." Her observation reflected the specialized expertise that commanded premium pricing and distinguished Phoenix Digital Solutions from competitors who focused primarily on creative development without understanding regulatory complexities. The call concluded with requests for additional information about our analytics capabilities and timeline availability for potential project launch within the next quarter. The positive reception and specific follow-up requests indicated strong likelihood of contract approval, pending final review of our proposal by their legal and procurement departments. The systematic approach to vendor evaluation demonstrated the professionalism and financial capacity that characterized our target client base. After the call ended, I updated project tracking systems and sent follow-up materials to the pharmaceutical team while coordinating with our compliance specialist about regulatory requirements for European market campaigns. The post-presentation activities were as important as the presentation itself, demonstrating responsiveness and attention to detail that reinforced client confidence in our capabilities and professionalism. The remainder of the afternoon was spent managing ongoing client campaigns, reviewing performance reports from our analytics team, and participating in strategy sessions with team members across different time zones. The work required constant attention to detail, creative problem-solving, and strategic thinking that made each day intellectually challenging and professionally satisfying despite the lack of traditional office environment or conventional organizational structure. Marcus arrived home at 7:30, carrying his briefcase and wearing the satisfied expression that indicated successful completion of important client work. His day at Henderson & Associates had included meetings with 3 different clients, resolution of a complex tax compliance issue, and preparation of financial projections for a potential merger that would significantly expand one client's operations throughout the southwestern United States. "How was your day?" he asked, settling into his preferred chair in our living room with the relaxed posture of someone transitioning from professional responsibilities to personal time. The question was genuinely interested rather than perfunctory, though his understanding of my daily activities remained limited by his inability to comprehend the scope and complexity of digital business operations. "Pretty productive," I replied, choosing not to elaborate about the pharmaceutical presentation or the potential $800,000 contract that could be finalized within the next few weeks. Previous attempts to share exciting business developments had been met with polite interest that quickly shifted to concerns about the unpredictability of freelance income and suggestions that I consider more stable employment alternatives. Marcus began describing his day in detail, sharing the satisfaction he felt about successfully resolving complex financial issues for clients who depended on his expertise for strategic business decisions. His enthusiasm for his work was genuine and admirable, reflecting deep professional competence and commitment to client service that had earned respect throughout the Phoenix accounting community. The specific examples he provided demonstrated sophisticated understanding of tax law, financial analysis, and business strategy that required years of education and experience to master. The contrast between his detailed sharing of professional achievements and my vague responses about my own work highlighted the fundamental communication breakdown that was gradually undermining our relationship. Marcus's inability to understand or appreciate my business success meant that I had to minimize or hide achievements that should have been celebrated and shared between partners who were building a life together. As the evening progressed through dinner preparation and casual conversation about weekend plans, I found myself wondering how much longer I could maintain the fiction that my work was a casual side project rather than a substantial business enterprise. The growing success of Phoenix Digital Solutions was creating opportunities for expansion and strategic partnerships that would require more time, travel, and professional commitment, making it increasingly difficult to maintain the illusion that my work was compatible with traditional expectations for work-life balance and domestic responsibilities. The disconnect between my actual professional achievements and Marcus's perception of my daily activities had become a constant source of internal tension that was affecting my ability to enjoy either business success or personal relationships. The pride and satisfaction that should have accompanied building a multi-million-dollar company was diminished by the necessity of hiding that success from the person who should have been my strongest supporter and closest confidant. Tomorrow would bring another day of managing international client relationships, coordinating complex campaign launches, and building strategic partnerships that expanded our market reach and competitive capabilities. The pharmaceutical contract decision was expected within the next week, along with potential new opportunities in the technology and automotive sectors that could double our annual revenue if successfully secured and executed. Yet I would wake up tomorrow morning to more subtle criticisms about my work schedule, more suggestions about pursuing traditional employment, and more conversations where I would need to minimize or hide professional achievements that represented years of strategic thinking, creative innovation, and business development expertise. The success that should have strengthened our partnership was instead creating distance and resentment that threatened the foundation of our relationship. As I prepared for bed that night, I wondered whether Marcus would ever be able to understand and appreciate the business I had built, or whether our fundamental differences about professional success and personal achievement were too significant to overcome through improved communication and mutual understanding. The woman who had built a multi-million-dollar digital marketing empire was still being treated as an unemployed burden by the man who claimed to love and support her dreams. The pharmaceutical contract approval came through on a Tuesday morning. While Marcus was in the shower, preparing for what he had described as the most important presentation of his career at Henderson & Associates, the email notification appeared on my phone at exactly 6:47, containing confirmation that Phoenix Digital Solutions had been selected to manage their global digital transformation initiative with a total contract value of $1.2 million over 18 months. The figure represented more money than Marcus would earn in his next 4 years of traditional employment, yet I found myself staring at the screen in silence, unable to share the moment of triumph with the person who should have been celebrating alongside me. The irony of receiving life-changing professional news while listening to my husband practice talking points about quarterly revenue projections for small business clients created a surreal disconnect between my actual reality and the domestic fiction I had been maintaining for our marriage. Marcus emerged from the bathroom wearing his most expensive suit, the charcoal gray ensemble he reserved for presentations to potential high-value clients or important meetings with senior partners at the firm. His nervous energy was palpable, as he adjusted his tie and checked his appearance with the meticulous attention to detail that characterized his approach to professional presentations. "This could be the breakthrough that gets me noticed for the next promotion cycle," Marcus said, his voice carrying the excitement of someone whose career advancement depended on successfully impressing colleagues and supervisors through visible demonstrations of competence and leadership potential. The presentation he was preparing to deliver involved recommendations for expanding Henderson & Associates' small business consulting services, a market segment that could generate additional revenue while establishing Marcus as a strategic thinker, capable of identifying new opportunities for firm growth. I congratulated him on the opportunity while simultaneously processing the magnitude of my own professional achievement, which dwarfed his presentation in both financial scope and strategic complexity. The pharmaceutical contract would position Phoenix Digital Solutions as a leading provider of regulatory-compliant digital marketing services within the healthcare industry, opening doors to additional opportunities with medical device manufacturers, biotechnology companies, and international pharmaceutical corporations seeking specialized expertise for entering American markets. The contract included provisions for performance bonuses based on campaign effectiveness metrics, potential expansion into European and Asian markets if initial results exceeded projected targets, and exclusive negotiating rights for additional product lines within the client's portfolio. The strategic implications extended far beyond the immediate financial value, establishing credibility and market position that could attract similar clients and transform Phoenix Digital Solutions from a successful regional agency into a recognized international consulting firm. Marcus left for his presentation with a kiss on my forehead and a reminder that he would probably be late returning home due to post-presentation discussions with senior partners about implementation strategies and resource allocation. His excitement about the potential career implications was genuine and endearing, reflecting years of dedicated effort to establish himself as a valuable contributor to Henderson & Associates' continued growth and market expansion. The contrast between his nervous anticipation about internal firm politics and my calm processing of international business opportunities highlighted the vast difference in scope between our respective professional challenges. After Marcus departed, I called an emergency team meeting to discuss the pharmaceutical contract implementation timeline and resource allocation requirements. Phoenix Digital Solutions would need to expand our regulatory compliance capabilities, hire additional analytics specialists, and establish partnerships with European consulting firms to successfully execute the global campaign components. The growth requirements represented both exciting opportunities and significant operational challenges that would test our ability to scale efficiently while maintaining service quality standards. My core team assembled for the video conference within 30 minutes, demonstrating the responsiveness and flexibility that had made our distributed organization successful in competitive markets where traditional agencies struggled with bureaucratic decision-making processes. Sarah Chen, our operations director based in Seattle, had already begun developing preliminary project timelines and staffing recommendations. David Rodriguez, our chief technology officer working from Austin, was prepared to discuss platform integrations and compliance monitoring systems required for pharmaceutical industry regulations. "This changes everything about our market position," Sarah observed as we reviewed the contract terms and implementation requirements. Her strategic perspective had been invaluable during our rapid growth phase, helping navigate complex client relationships and operational challenges that accompanied scaling from local projects to international engagements. "We're not just competing with other digital agencies anymore. We're establishing ourselves as specialized consultants who can handle the most complex regulatory environments." The team discussion continued for 2 hours as we developed detailed plans for hiring specialized personnel, establishing compliance protocols, and creating project management systems capable of coordinating activities across multiple time zones and regulatory jurisdictions. The complexity of managing pharmaceutical marketing campaigns required expertise in medical communications, regulatory approval processes, and international advertising standards that extended far beyond traditional digital marketing capabilities. David presented technical requirements for developing proprietary compliance monitoring tools that would automatically track regulatory adherence across all campaign components, ensuring that creative content, data collection practices, and communication strategies remained within approved guidelines throughout the campaign lifecycle. The investment in specialized technology would provide competitive advantages that justified premium pricing while reducing operational risks associated with regulatory violations. The staffing expansion would require hiring 12 additional team members with specialized expertise in pharmaceutical marketing, regulatory compliance, medical communications, and international business development. The hiring process would need to be completed within 6 weeks to meet the client's aggressive timeline for campaign launch, requiring intensive recruitment efforts and accelerated onboarding procedures to ensure new team members could contribute effectively from the beginning of the engagement. As the team meeting concluded with assignments for immediate action items and follow-up sessions scheduled throughout the week, I realized that Phoenix Digital Solutions was transitioning from a successful small business into a substantial consulting organization with the operational complexity and strategic importance that characterized established professional services firms. The transformation would require significant changes in how I managed daily operations, strategic planning, and client relationships while maintaining the entrepreneurial agility that had driven our initial success. The remainder of the morning was spent reviewing resumes from potential hires, conducting preliminary interviews with candidates who possessed specialized pharmaceutical marketing experience, and negotiating partnership agreements with European consulting firms who could provide local market expertise and regulatory guidance for international campaign components. The rapid pace of business development required constant attention to strategic decisions that would influence our competitive position and operational capabilities for years to come. Marcus returned home that evening with the subdued demeanor of someone whose professional expectations had not been met according to plan. His presentation had been well received by immediate colleagues, but the senior partners had expressed concerns about market timing and resource allocation that suggested implementation of his recommendations would be delayed pending further analysis and budget considerations. The response was typical of corporate decision-making processes that prioritized risk management over aggressive growth strategies. They want to see more detailed financial projections before committing to expansion initiatives, Marcus explained, as he changed out of his presentation suit with obvious disappointment about the outcome. His frustration was understandable given the effort he had invested in developing recommendations and the personal stakes he had attached to successful reception by firm leadership. Peterson thinks the market analysis needs additional validation before we can justify hiring additional consultants. Peterson was the managing partner at Henderson & Associates, a cautious leader who had guided the firm through economic uncertainty by maintaining conservative growth strategies and avoiding speculative investments in unproven market opportunities. His risk-averse approach had protected the firm during challenging periods but also limited their ability to capitalize on emerging trends and expand into new service areas that could generate substantial revenue growth. I listened to Marcus describe his disappointing day while mentally organizing my own schedule around the intensive hiring and operational planning activities required for pharmaceutical contract implementation. The contrast between his frustration with corporate bureaucracy and my excitement about rapid business expansion illustrated fundamental differences in our professional environments and strategic perspectives. While Marcus waited for permission to pursue modest growth initiatives, I was managing explosive expansion that required immediate action and decisive leadership. Maybe this is actually good timing, Marcus continued, settling into the couch. With the resigned acceptance of someone whose professional advancement depended on factors beyond his direct control. Peterson mentioned that they might consider promoting me to manager level if the Morrison Group expansion goes well next quarter. That would mean a substantial salary increase and better positioning for partnership track consideration. The potential promotion represented significant achievement within Henderson & Associates' organizational hierarchy, reflecting recognition of Marcus's analytical skills and client management capabilities. His excitement about the opportunity was touching, though the salary increase he considered substantial was less than Phoenix Digital Solutions generated in monthly revenue from our smaller clients. The disconnect between our financial realities was becoming increasingly difficult to ignore or minimize through diplomatic conversation. Marcus spent the evening reviewing financial projections and market analysis data for his next presentation to senior partners, determined to address their concerns and demonstrate the strategic value of his expansion recommendations. His dedication to thorough preparation and systematic analysis reflected the professional competence that had earned respect throughout his career, even when applied to opportunities that seemed modest compared to the international business development activities occupying my daily schedule. The following weeks passed in a blur of intensive hiring, operational planning, and client communication as Phoenix Digital Solutions prepared for the most complex engagement in our company's history. The pharmaceutical contract required establishing new operational procedures, technology platforms, and quality control systems that would support not only the immediate project but also position us for similar opportunities with other healthcare industry clients seeking specialized digital marketing expertise. Sarachan relocated temporarily to Phoenix to oversee the hiring process and new employee onboarding, working from our spare bedroom that had been hastily converted into a secondary office space to accommodate our expanding operational requirements. Her presence in our home made it increasingly difficult to maintain the fiction that my work consisted of casual freelance projects rather than substantial business operations requiring professional management and strategic coordination. "Your business is really taking off," Sarah observed during a brief break between candidate interviews. Her comment was delivered with the casual tone of someone stating an obvious fact, unaware that the true scope of our growth remained hidden from my husband, who continued to view my work as a hobby that might eventually evolve into traditional employment. "The pharmaceutical contract is going to establish us as the go-to agency for regulated industries. We should probably start thinking about office space and formal incorporation structures." The suggestion about office space reflected practical considerations about our growing team and client expectations for professional meeting facilities. But it also represented a transition point where my business success would become impossible to disguise or minimize. Traditional office leases, formal corporate structures, and visible business operations would eliminate any remaining ambiguity about whether Phoenix Digital Solutions constituted legitimate professional activity or creative hobby. Marcus's reaction to Sarah's temporary presence in our home was carefully neutral, reflecting his ongoing confusion about the nature of my work and his reluctance to ask direct questions that might reveal the extent of his misunderstanding about my professional activities. He treated Sarah with polite courtesy while maintaining the diplomatic distance that characterized his interactions with people whose roles in my business remained unclear to him. "It's nice that you have help with your projects," Marcus commented after Sarah had left for the day, his choice of words revealing his continued perception of my work as small-scale activities that occasionally required assistance rather than complex business operations requiring specialized expertise and systematic management. The gap between his understanding and my reality had grown so wide that bridging it through gradual explanation seemed impossible without fundamentally disrupting his assumptions about our relationship dynamics. The hiring process yielded exceptional candidates whose expertise in pharmaceutical marketing, regulatory compliance, and international business development represented exactly the specialized knowledge required for successful contract execution. Dr. Jennifer Walsh, former FDA regulatory affairs specialist, brought deep understanding of approval processes and compliance requirements that would ensure all campaign components met strict pharmaceutical industry standards. Michael Torres, veteran pharmaceutical marketing director with 15 years of experience at major industry leaders, provided strategic insights and client relationship management capabilities that could expand our healthcare industry presence. Each new hire represented substantial salary investment that reflected both their specialized expertise and the premium pricing our pharmaceutical clients paid for regulatory compliant marketing services. The total payroll expansion exceeded Marcus's annual salary within the first month of contract implementation, yet explaining these operational decisions would require revealing financial information that might trigger defensive responses about the disparity between our respective professional achievements. The pharmaceutical campaign launch proceeded smoothly through initial phases of market research, creative development, and regulatory review processes that demonstrated our team's specialized capabilities and systematic approach to complex project management. Client feedback was consistently positive, reflecting appreciation for our thorough understanding of industry requirements and innovative solutions to communication challenges within heavily regulated marketing environments. Campaign performance metrics exceeded projected targets within the first month of implementation, generating measurable increases in brand awareness, professional engagement, and qualified lead generation that provided clear evidence of return on investment for our pharmaceutical client. The success validated our strategic approach and positioning while creating opportunities for contract expansion and additional engagements with other healthcare industry companies seeking similar results. Marcus's promotion to manager level was officially announced during the same week that our pharmaceutical campaign achieved its first major milestone, creating an ironic juxtaposition between his celebration of traditional corporate advancement and my quiet processing of business success that dwarfed his achievement in both financial scope and strategic significance. His excitement about the promotion was genuine and well-deserved, reflecting years of dedicated effort to establish himself within Henderson and Associates' organizational hierarchy. "This opens up so many opportunities for advancement," Marcus explained over dinner at his favorite restaurant, chosen to celebrate his promotion with the kind of formal recognition that traditional corporate environments provided for professional achievements. His enthusiasm about future possibilities was infectious, though I found myself wondering how he would react if he understood that my business success had already achieved the financial security and professional recognition he was working to attain through gradual corporate advancement. The promotion included a 15% salary increase, expanded client responsibilities, and eligibility for partnership track consideration within the next 3 to 5 years if his performance continued meeting firm expectations. The timeline for potential partnership represented the culmination of a carefully planned career progression that would provide long-term financial security and professional prestige within the Phoenix accounting community. Marcus's family celebrated his promotion with genuine enthusiasm during a dinner gathering at his parents' house, where conversation focused extensively on his expanding responsibilities and future opportunities within Henderson and Associates. Robert and Linda expressed obvious pride in their son's professional advancement, viewing his promotion as validation of the educational investments and career guidance they had provided throughout his development. "We always knew you had the analytical skills and dedication to succeed in professional services," Linda said, her voice carrying the satisfaction of a parent whose child had fulfilled carefully nurtured expectations. Her comment reflected the family's understanding of success through traditional career progression and measurable achievements within established organizational structures. Jennifer, Marcus's sister, contributed observations about the importance of both partners building stable careers and contributing equally to household financial security. Her emphasis on traditional employment and dual-income households reflected conventional wisdom about relationship dynamics and financial planning that assumed both partners would pursue similar career paths through established institutions. "It's so important to have two reliable incomes," Jennifer observed while helping clear dishes after dinner. Her comment was directed toward me with the subtle pressure that characterized family expectations about my eventual transition from freelance projects to traditional employment. "Especially when you're planning for major purchases or starting a family. You can't depend on uncertain income streams for long-term financial planning." The irony of receiving lectures about financial stability from someone whose annual income was less than Phoenix Digital Solutions generated in monthly revenue was almost amusing, though I maintained polite agreement to avoid triggering family discussions about the legitimacy of entrepreneurial business models versus traditional employment. Security. Jennifer's concern about uncertain income streams reflected complete ignorance about the substantial contracts and recurring revenue that characterized our client relationships. Marcus's inability to correct his family's assumptions about my work revealed the extent to which he had failed to understand or communicate the actual nature of my professional activities. His silence during conversations about my supposed need for stable employment suggested either continued confusion about my business success or deliberate avoidance of topics that might complicate family dynamics and expectations. The evening concluded with Robert offering career advice about transitioning from creative projects to corporate marketing positions, drawing on his decades of experience in educational administration to recommend strategies for building professional credibility and advancing through organizational hierarchies. His suggestions were well-intentioned but completely irrelevant to someone who had already achieved business success that exceeded anything available through traditional employment within the Phoenix corporate community. "The key is demonstrating consistent performance and building relationships with decision-makers who can influence advancement opportunities," Robert explained with the authority of someone whose career had followed conventional patterns of gradual progression through institutional structures. His advice reflected genuine desire to help while revealing complete misunderstanding of entrepreneurial business development and client relationship management. As we drove home from the family dinner, Marcus expressed satisfaction about his promotion recognition while remaining diplomatically silent about his family's continued assumptions regarding my professional status and future career development. His reluctance to address the disconnect between their expectations and my actual achievements suggested ongoing uncertainty about how to navigate competing loyalties between family assumptions and marital support. "I know my family can be a little traditional about career expectations," Marcus said carefully as we approached our apartment. His comment acknowledged the tension without directly addressing the fundamental misunderstanding that enabled their patronizing advice and presumptuous suggestions about my professional development. "They mean well, but they don't always understand different approaches to building a career." The understatement was so dramatic that it approached comedy, given that his family's complete ignorance about my business success enabled them to offer career guidance to someone whose professional achievements exceeded their combined lifetime earnings. Marcus's diplomatic deflection avoided confronting the reality that his own understanding of my work remained limited and inaccurate despite years of marriage and daily observation of my professional activities. The pharmaceutical campaign continued exceeding performance targets throughout the second month of implementation, generating client satisfaction that translated into discussions about expanding our engagement to include additional product lines and international market development initiatives. The success provided clear evidence that Phoenix Digital Solutions had successfully transitioned into the healthcare industry consulting market while maintaining operational excellence and strategic innovation. Client testimonials and performance metrics were impressive enough to attract attention from other pharmaceutical companies seeking similar digital marketing expertise for their own regulatory compliance challenges and market expansion initiatives. The referral opportunities represented potential revenue growth that could double our annual business volume while establishing us as the recognized leader in pharmaceutical digital marketing services. The operational success required expanding our Phoenix presence beyond the spare bedroom office that had become inadequate for managing complex international campaigns and accommodating our growing team of specialized consultants. Sarah Chen had identified several potential office locations that would provide professional meeting facilities, adequate workspace for our expanding staff, and technology infrastructure capable of supporting sophisticated analytics and compliance monitoring systems. The transition to formal office space represented a symbolic milestone that would make my business success impossible to disguise or minimize through continued reference to freelance projects and casual consulting work. Traditional commercial leases, professional office environments, and visible business operations would eliminate any remaining ambiguity about whether Phoenix Digital Solutions constituted legitimate professional enterprise or elaborate hobby. Marcus's reaction to discussions about office space leasing was carefully neutral, though I could sense his confusion about the apparent scale of business operations that seemed inconsistent with his understanding of my work as part-time marketing projects. His reluctance to ask direct questions about financial requirements and operational complexity suggested awareness that the answers might challenge his assumptions about our relationship dynamics and professional contributions. Office space seems like a big investment for consulting work, Marcus observed during a conversation about commercial real estate options. His comment reflected genuine uncertainty about business development requirements while revealing continued inability to comprehend the financial success that made such investments not only feasible but strategically necessary for continued growth and client service. The observation provided an opening to explain the actual scope of Phoenix Digital Solutions operations and financial performance, but previous attempts to share business achievements had been met with polite interest followed by suggestions about pursuing more traditional career advancement. The pattern of response suggested that Marcus preferred to maintain his existing understanding rather than confronting information that might complicate his assumptions about our respective professional contributions. As winter approached and the pharmaceutical campaign entered its third month of successful implementation, I found myself increasingly isolated by the necessity of hiding professional achievements that should have been shared and celebrated with my husband. The success that had initially filled me with pride and excitement was becoming a source of loneliness and resentment as I realized that my most significant accomplishments remained invisible and unappreciated by the person whose opinion mattered most to me. The disconnect between my actual professional reality and Marcus's perception of my daily activities had created a fundamental dishonesty in our relationship that was affecting my ability to enjoy either business success or personal intimacy. Every achievement had to be minimized or hidden, every strategic decision had to be disguised as casual project management, and every indication of substantial business operations had to be explained away as temporary expansion of small-scale consulting activities. Jennifer's wedding announcement arrived during this period of growing internal tension, accompanied by requests that Marcus serve as master of ceremonies for the reception dinner and deliver a speech about family support and professional achievement. The irony of being asked to celebrate family success while hiding my own accomplishments created additional pressure in a relationship already strained by fundamental misunderstanding and systematic deception about the true nature of my work. The wedding planning process revealed the depth of family assumptions about my professional status as Jennifer repeatedly sought my assistance with creative projects and decorative details that reflected their understanding of my skills as artistic hobbies rather than business capabilities. Their requests for help with invitation design, social media promotion, and event coordination demonstrated complete ignorance about the strategic marketing and project management expertise that characterized my actual professional competencies. Marcus's enthusiasm about participating in his sister's wedding celebration was genuine and endearing, reflecting the close family relationships that had always been one of his most attractive qualities. His excitement about delivering the reception speech provided opportunities to demonstrate his public speaking abilities and articulate his values about family support and personal achievement to relatives and friends whose opinions he valued deeply. The wedding preparations coincided with Phoenix Digital Solutions' most intensive period of business development as we negotiated additional pharmaceutical contracts, established European partnerships, and implemented technology upgrades required for managing increasingly complex international campaigns. The contrast between my professional obligations and wedding-related expectations created scheduling conflicts that required careful navigation to avoid revealing the true scope of my business commitments. As January transformed into February, and wedding plans intensified alongside pharmaceutical campaign expansion, I realized that the evening of Jennifer's wedding reception would likely represent a crucial moment in my relationship with Marcus and his family. The speech he was preparing about family support and professional contribution would create an ironic backdrop for conversations about my supposed need for stable employment and traditional career development. The pharmaceutical contract success had attracted attention from technology companies, financial services firms, and international corporations seeking similar regulatory compliance expertise and strategic marketing innovation. The opportunities represented potential business growth that would require establishing formal corporate headquarters, hiring additional specialized personnel, and implementing operational systems designed for managing hundreds of millions of dollars in annual revenue. Yet I would attend Jennifer's wedding as the unemployed family member whose husband was celebrating his promotion to manager level at a mid-tier accounting firm, listening to speeches about supporting family members who refused to contribute, while hiding the fact that my business success exceeded the combined achievements of everyone else in attendance. The irony was becoming too dramatic to sustain without eventual revelation or relationship destruction. The winter evening air was crisp with the promise of spring as I prepared for what might be the last family gathering where I could maintain the fiction that I was an unemployed burden rather than the entrepreneur whose success had quietly revolutionized everything about our financial future and professional possibilities. Jennifer's wedding reception was held at the prestigious Desert Mountain Resort in Scottsdale, a venue that showcased the family's commitment to celebrating their daughter's marriage with elegance and style befitting their middle-class aspirations and social expectations. The ballroom was decorated with cascading white orchids and soft golden lighting that created an atmosphere of refined celebration, while round tables draped in champagne-colored linens accommodated the 150 guests who had gathered to witness Jennifer's union with Michael, a pediatric nurse whose gentle demeanor and stable career had earned enthusiastic approval from the entire family. I sat at the family table wearing a midnight blue silk dress that I had purchased during a business trip to New York, its understated elegance appropriate for the formal occasion while carefully avoiding any appearance of ostentation that might trigger comments about unnecessary expenses or inappropriate priorities. Marcus looked handsome in his charcoal suit, the same ensemble he had worn for his promotion celebration, and his nervous energy about delivering the evening's keynote address was balanced by obvious pride in his sister's happiness and his own role in the celebration. The cocktail hour had proceeded smoothly through conversations with relatives and family friends who offered polite inquiries about my work that I deflected with vague references to marketing consulting while steering discussions toward safer topics like wedding planning, travel experiences, and shared memories from Jennifer and Michael's courtship. The practiced responses had become second nature over years of family gatherings where honest answers about my professional activities would have required extensive explanations that no one seemed genuinely interested in hearing. Robert and Linda circulated among the guests with obvious satisfaction about the successful execution of their daughter's wedding celebration, introducing Marcus and me to extended family members and longtime friends whose presence demonstrated the couple's deep roots within the Phoenix community. Their pride in Jennifer's achievement of finding a suitable husband and establishing a stable household reflected traditional values about family formation and life progression that had shaped their expectations for all their children. Marcus's cousin David had flown in from Denver with his wife Sarah, both working as engineers for an aerospace manufacturing company that provided steady employment and middle-class comfort through traditional career progression within established corporate structures. Their conversation focused on recent promotions, professional development opportunities, and plans for purchasing a larger home in preparation for starting a family, topics that aligned perfectly with family expectations about appropriate life goals and measurable success. It's so wonderful when couples can both contribute professionally to building their future together, Sarah observed during dinner conversation that seemed designed to highlight the importance of dual-career households and shared financial responsibilities. Her comment was delivered with the subtle emphasis that characterized indirect advice, reflecting assumptions about my employment status that had become standard family narrative despite complete disconnection from reality. Jennifer's college roommate Amanda had traveled from Chicago where she worked as a corporate communications manager for a Fortune 500 financial services company, her career trajectory representing exactly the kind of traditional professional advancement that family members consistently recommended as the appropriate path for my own development. Amanda's enthusiastic descriptions of her responsibilities, advancement opportunities, and comprehensive benefits package provided additional examples of conventional success that reinforced family expectations about proper career choices. The dinner service proceeded through multiple courses of carefully prepared cuisine that reflected the resort's reputation for excellence and attention to detail. Conversations at our table flowed easily among topics that had become familiar through years of family gatherings, with Marcus contributing observations about his expanding responsibilities at Henderson and Associates while I maintained my usual pattern of polite engagement without revealing specific details about my professional activities. Marcus's uncle Frank, a retired high school principal who had spent 40 years in educational administration, shared stories about former students who had achieved professional success through persistence and dedication to traditional career development. His emphasis on the importance of steady employment and gradual advancement reflected generational wisdom about building financial security through institutional loyalty and systematic progression within established organizational hierarchies. The key to long-term success is finding a good company and proving your value through consistent performance, Frank explained with the authority of someone whose career had followed conventional patterns that provided comfortable retirement and social recognition. His advice was delivered with genuine concern for my professional development, though it revealed complete misunderstanding of entrepreneurial business models and alternative approaches to career advancement. The conversation continued through dessert service as family members and friends shared their own experiences with career transitions, professional challenges, and strategies for achieving work-life balance within traditional employment structures. Each anecdote reinforced the collective assumption that meaningful work occurred within corporate environments and that professional fulfillment required formal organizational recognition and systematic advancement through established hierarchies. As the evening progressed toward the speech portion of the reception program, Marcus excused himself to review his prepared remarks one final time, his nervous energy about public speaking combining with excitement about the opportunity to articulate his values about family support and personal achievement to an audience that included relatives, friends, and professional colleagues whose opinions he valued deeply. The Master of Ceremonies introduced Marcus with warmth and enthusiasm, highlighting his recent promotion to manager level at Henderson and Associates and his reputation for dedication to both professional excellence and family relationships. The introduction positioned him as someone whose success provided credibility for offering insights about supporting family members through life transitions and professional development challenges. Marcus approached the microphone with confidence that reflected his preparation and genuine enthusiasm for celebrating his sister's marriage while sharing observations about the importance of family support during major life transitions. His opening remarks acknowledged the significance of Jennifer and Michael's commitment to building a life together while thanking guests for their presence and participation in the celebration. Marriage represents a partnership where both people contribute their unique strengths toward shared goals, Marcus began, his voice carrying easily throughout the ballroom as guests settled into attentive silence. His opening theme about partnership and shared contribution would have been touching under different circumstances, though I found myself wondering how he would define contribution and partnership if he understood the actual scope of my professional achievements and financial success. The speech continued through carefully crafted observations about the importance of supporting family members during challenging periods and celebrating their achievements during moments of triumph. Marcus's delivery was polished and engaging, demonstrating public speaking skills that served him well in client presentations and professional networking events where articulate communication was essential for building relationships and establishing credibility. Jennifer has always been someone who works hard for what she wants and never expects others to carry her load, Marcus continued, his voice gaining momentum as he warmed to themes about personal responsibility and individual contribution to family welfare. The comment was clearly intended as praise for his sister's work ethic and independence, though the emphasis on not expecting others to carry your load created uncomfortable irony given his complete ignorance about who was actually carrying the financial load in our marriage. The audience responded positively to Marcus's observations about personal responsibility and individual contribution, nodding in agreement with sentiments that reflected widely shared values about self-reliance and mutual support within family relationships. Their engagement with his message demonstrated appreciation for the moral framework he was articulating, even as I realized that his words were inadvertently describing the opposite of our actual relationship dynamics. In every family, there are people who step up when support is needed and people who expect others to handle the difficult responsibilities, Marcus continued, his confidence building as he sensed positive audience reception. The distinction between contributors and dependents was becoming a central theme of his remarks, delivered with the conviction of someone who believed he was speaking from experience about family dynamics and personal character. Jennifer beamed with pride as her brother praised her independence and work ethic while offering observations about the importance of choosing partners who shared similar values about personal responsibility and mutual contribution. Her happiness about the recognition was genuine and deserved, though I found myself increasingly uncomfortable with the direction of Marcus's commentary about family members who failed to carry their appropriate share of responsibilities. Some people talk about supporting family but never actually make the sacrifices necessary to provide meaningful help, Marcus said, his voice taking on the slightly sharper edge that appeared when he was building toward what he considered particularly important points. The observation was intended as general commentary about character and commitment, though his choice of words felt uncomfortably specific given our ongoing tensions about professional priorities and financial contributions. The speech was approaching what appeared to be its climactic message about the importance of recognizing and appreciating family members who demonstrated genuine commitment through actions rather than just words. Marcus's preparation and delivery were impressive, demonstrating thoughtfulness about message development and skill in public presentation that had contributed to his professional success and reputation for effective client communication. Tonight we're celebrating two people who have found partners willing to share the work of building a successful life together, Marcus continued, gesturing toward Jennifer and Michael with obvious affection and approval. The emphasis on sharing work and mutual contribution was consistent with his fundamental beliefs about relationship dynamics, though it highlighted his complete misunderstanding of how work and contribution were actually distributed within our marriage. The audience was fully engaged with Marcus's message about partnership and shared responsibility, their attention focused on his articulate presentation of values that resonated with their own beliefs about family relationships and personal character. The positive reception was encouraging him to elaborate on themes about contribution and support that were inadvertently creating a public commentary on our marriage that bore no relationship to actual circumstances. Unfortunately, not everyone understands that being part of a family means contributing to family welfare rather than just expecting others to provide support while you focus on personal interests, Marcus said, his voice carrying conviction. That suggested he was drawing on personal experience to illustrate important principles about character and commitment. The shift toward criticism of unnamed family members who failed to contribute appropriately created tension in the room as guests began to wonder who he might be referencing. I felt my stomach tighten as Marcus's speech took an increasingly pointed turn toward criticism of family members who refused to fulfill their obligations while expecting others to carry their financial and emotional burdens. His delivery remained polished and engaging, but the content was becoming a thinly veiled attack on someone whose identity was becoming increasingly obvious to anyone familiar with family dynamics and recent conversations about my employment status. Success in marriage requires two people who are equally committed to building something together, not one person working hard while the other pursues hobbies and personal interests that don't contribute to family security, Marcus continued, his voice gaining intensity as he elaborated on themes that had apparently been developing in his mind for months without any direct communication with me about his concerns or expectations. The audience was beginning to shift uncomfortably as Marcus's celebration of Jennifer and Michael's partnership evolved into what sounded like criticism of his own marriage, delivered with the kind of specific detail that suggested personal grievances, rather than general observations about family dynamics. Jennifer's expression was changing from pride to concern as she realized that her wedding reception was becoming a platform for airing family conflicts. I've watched too many families struggle because one person refuses to take responsibility for contributing their fair share while expecting others to handle all the real work of maintaining financial stability and family relationships, Marcus said, his voice now carrying the emotional weight of someone who believed he was addressing serious injustices that had been ignored for too long. The speech had completely abandoned its original celebration of Jennifer's marriage in favor of a detailed indictment of unnamed family members who failed to meet expectations about professional responsibility and financial contribution. Marcus's passion for the topic was obvious, though his timing and venue for addressing these concerns demonstrated remarkably poor judgment about appropriate occasions for confronting family issues. Robert and Linda exchanged worried glances as their son's wedding speech transformed into what appeared to be a public attack on his wife, delivered to an audience that included extended family, professional colleagues, and longtime friends who were witnessing private conflicts being aired in the most inappropriate possible setting. Their embarrassment about the situation was obvious, though they seemed uncertain about whether intervention would make the circumstances better or worse. Some people think that being married means they can coast along without contributing while their partner handles all the financial responsibilities and family obligations, Marcus continued, his voice rising with emotion as he approached what appeared to be the climactic point of his impromptu sermon about marriage and personal responsibility. The specificity of his accusations was making it impossible for anyone in the audience to pretend he was speaking generally about family dynamics rather than directly about our relationship. I sat in stunned silence as my husband used his sister's wedding reception to publicly humiliate me in front of family and friends while demonstrating complete ignorance about the financial reality of our marriage. The irony of being accused of financial dependency while secretly funding a lifestyle that exceeded his earning capacity through my business success was so overwhelming that I felt dizzy trying to process the magnitude of his miscalculation and public cruelty. Tonight I want to celebrate people who understand that marriage is about mutual support and shared sacrifice, not about one person working hard while the other treats employment as optional and expects someone else to handle the real responsibilities of adult life, Marcus said, his voice carrying righteous indignation that would have been appropriate if his accusations bore any relationship to actual circumstances. The audience was now openly uncomfortable as Marcus's speech continued its relentless attack on family members who failed to meet his standards for professional responsibility and financial contribution. The celebration of Jennifer's marriage had been completely overshadowed by what appeared to be a husband publicly attacking his wife for character flaws that existed only in his imagination, delivered with conviction that suggested months of accumulated resentment and frustration. Jennifer finally stood up from her chair and approached the microphone, her face flushed with embarrassment about the direction her wedding reception had taken. Her intervention was necessary to prevent further damage to family relationships and to restore some semblance of appropriate celebration to what should have been one of the happiest evenings of her life. "Thank you, Marcus, for those thoughts about partnership and commitment," Jennifer said diplomatically, her voice carrying forced cheerfulness as she attempted to redirect attention back toward wedding celebration rather than marriage criticism. Her graceful handling of an impossible situation demonstrated social skills that had apparently been inherited by only one of Robert and Linda's children. Marcus seemed surprised by his sister's intervention, as if he had been so focused on delivering his message about family responsibility that he had lost awareness of the audience and occasion for his remarks. His confusion about why his speech was being cut short suggested complete disconnection from how his words were being received by guests who had expected celebration rather than confrontation. The band quickly resumed playing as Jennifer guided Marcus away from the microphone, her diplomatic management of the situation allowing guests to return to conversation and dancing while processing what they had just witnessed. The transition back to normal reception activities was handled with professional skill by the resort staff, though the atmosphere remained strained by the uncomfortable revelations that had emerged during what should have been a celebration of family unity. I remained seated at the family table, processing the magnitude of what had just occurred while trying to determine my response to being publicly attacked for character flaws that represented the opposite of reality. Marcus returned to his chair with the satisfied expression of someone who believed he had successfully communicated important truths, apparently unaware that his speech had destroyed any remaining credibility he might have had regarding understanding of family dynamics or personal character assessment. "That was quite a speech," David observed carefully, his tone suggesting uncertainty about how to respond to what he had witnessed. The diplomatic understatement reflected widespread confusion among family members and friends who were struggling to process the implications of Marcus's public attack on our marriage without understanding the specific circumstances that had motivated such extreme accusations. Robert and Linda approached our table with obvious concern about the family discord that had been revealed during their daughter's wedding celebration. Their embarrassment about the situation was compounded by uncertainty about how to address the underlying issues that had apparently been developing within our marriage without their knowledge or understanding. "Perhaps we should discuss this privately at another time," Linda suggested gently, her maternal instincts focused on damage control and family harmony rather than immediate resolution of complex marital issues that had been inappropriately aired in public. Her diplomatic approach reflected decades of experience managing family conflicts while maintaining social appropriateness and relationship preservation. Marcus seemed genuinely confused by the family's reaction to his speech, apparently expecting appreciation for his willingness to address important issues about family responsibility rather than recognition that he had committed serious violations of social appropriateness and personal loyalty. His disconnect from normal social expectations was so complete that it suggested fundamental problems with judgment and awareness that extended beyond our marriage into basic interpersonal competence. "I was just being honest about the importance of both partners contributing equally to marriage," Marcus said defensively, his tone suggesting genuine bewilderment about why his observations were being received negatively. The justification revealed complete inability to understand that honesty without accuracy was simply public cruelty disguised as moral principle. The remainder of the reception passed in strained conversation as family members and friends processed what they had witnessed while trying to restore some semblance of celebration to Jennifer's wedding evening. Their efforts to return focus to the bride and groom were largely successful, though the underlying tension about family conflicts and marriage problems remained visible beneath polite social interactions. Several guests approached me privately to express concern about Marcus's speech and offer support during what they assumed must be a difficult period in our marriage. Their kindness was touching, though their assumptions about relationship problems were based on Marcus's public accusations, rather than understanding of actual circumstances that would have reversed their sympathy entirely. Marriage can be challenging when partners have different perspectives about roles and responsibilities, Amanda offered diplomatically during a brief private conversation near the dessert table. Her careful phrasing reflected genuine concern, while avoiding taking sides in conflicts she didn't understand, demonstrating the social intelligence that characterized successful corporate communications management. As the evening wound down and guests began departing with expressions of congratulations to Jennifer and Michael combined with carefully worded observations about family dynamics and marriage challenges, I realized that the time for maintaining diplomatic silence about my professional achievements had officially ended. Marcus's public attack had crossed lines that made continued secrecy about my business success impossible to maintain without accepting permanent damage to my reputation and relationships. The drive home was conducted in tense silence as Marcus processed the negative reception his speech had received while I organized my thoughts about how to respond to being publicly humiliated based on accusations that were not only false but represented the exact opposite of our actual relationship dynamics. His confusion about family reaction suggested genuine inability to understand why honesty about family responsibility was being criticized rather than appreciated. "I don't understand why everyone seemed upset about what I said," Marcus finally observed as we approached our apartment complex. His genuine bewilderment about the negative response to his speech revealed disconnection from normal social expectations that was more disturbing than mere insensitivity or poor judgment about appropriate timing and venue. "You publicly attacked your wife during your sister's wedding reception," I replied, my voice carrying the controlled anger that had been building throughout the evening as I processed the magnitude of his betrayal and cruelty. The simple statement of fact seemed to surprise him, as if he had somehow failed to recognize that his speech constituted a direct attack on my character and our marriage. Marcus parked the car and turned to face me with obvious confusion about why I was interpreting his observations about family responsibility as personal attacks rather than general commentary about important principles. His inability to connect his specific accusations with their obvious reference to our marriage demonstrated either remarkable obtuseness or deliberate psychological distance from the implications of his words. "I wasn't attacking you specifically," Marcus said defensively, his tone suggesting genuine belief that his repeated references to unemployed spouses who refused to contribute to family welfare somehow didn't constitute direct criticism of my employment status and financial contributions. The denial revealed psychological mechanisms that enabled him to maintain cognitive dissonance between his actions and their obvious meanings. "You stood in front of our family and friends and called me an unemployed burden who refuses to contribute to our marriage," I said, my voice rising with emotion as the full impact of his public humiliation became clear. The accurate summary of his speech seemed to surprise him, as if hearing his words reflected back revealed implications he had somehow failed to consider while delivering them. Marcus stared at me with the expression of someone processing information that contradicted fundamental assumptions about reality. His confusion was genuine rather than manipulative, suggesting that his understanding of our relationship dynamics was so distorted that he couldn't recognize when his accusations were directly targeting me rather than unnamed others who shared similar characteristics. "I was talking about general principles," Marcus insisted, though his voice carried less conviction as he began to grasp the connection between his specific criticisms and our actual circumstances. The defensive response revealed awareness that his speech had been inappropriate while maintaining denial about its targeted nature and personal implications. As we sat in the parking lot processing the events of the evening, I realized that Jennifer's wedding reception had created the perfect opportunity to reveal the truth about Phoenix Digital Solutions and demonstrate exactly who had been carrying the financial burden in our marriage. Marcus's public accusations about my failure to contribute would provide the ideal context for documenting my actual professional achievements and their impact on our financial security. The pharmaceutical contracts, international business development, and multi-million-dollar revenue streams that I had kept hidden to protect his ego were about to become the foundation for rebuilding my reputation and relationships on accurate information rather than his fictional narratives about employment and contribution. The man who had publicly called me an unemployed burden was about to discover that his wife was the entrepreneur whose success had been quietly revolutionizing their financial future while he remained focused on modest corporate advancement. Tomorrow would bring phone calls to family members, documentation of business achievements, and systematic correction of every false assumption that had enabled Marcus's public attack on my character. the woman who had built a digital marketing empire while being treated as an unemployed dependent, was finally ready to reveal exactly who had been supporting whom throughout our marriage. The next morning arrived with unusual clarity, as if the desert air had been washed clean by the emotional storm of the previous evening. I woke before dawn and immediately reached for my laptop, opening the Phoenix Digital Solutions client portal to review the latest performance metrics from our pharmaceutical campaign. The numbers were extraordinary, showing conversion rates that exceeded industry benchmarks by 43% and generating client satisfaction scores that virtually guaranteed contract renewals and expansion opportunities. Marcus remained asleep beside me, his breathing steady and peaceful, in complete contrast to the emotional turbulence he had created with his wedding speech. His ability to sleep soundly after publicly humiliating his wife demonstrated either remarkable psychological compartmentalization or complete disconnection from the implications of his accusations. Either way, his peaceful slumber was about to be permanently disrupted by revelations that would transform his understanding of our marriage and his own professional achievements. I dressed quietly and moved to my home office, where the evidence of my business empire surrounded me in the form of multiple monitors displaying real-time analytics, signed contracts worth millions of dollars, and communication threads with clients whose names Marcus would recognize from business news headlines. The pharmaceutical contract alone represented more annual revenue than Henderson and Associates generated from their top 5 clients combined, yet Marcus remained convinced that I was an unemployed burden draining our family's financial resources. The irony was about to become devastatingly clear through systematic presentation of documentation that would leave no room for continued denial or misunderstanding. Phoenix Digital Solutions' success had been carefully tracked and recorded through bank statements, client contracts, performance reports, and tax filings that painted an undeniable picture of entrepreneurial achievement exceeding anything available through traditional corporate employment in the Phoenix market. Sarah Chen called at exactly 7 o'clock from our temporary Phoenix office space, her voice carrying excitement about overnight developments in our European expansion initiative. 3 additional pharmaceutical companies had submitted requests for proposals based on referrals from our current client, representing potential contract values totaling over $2 million in additional annual revenue if we could successfully demonstrate our regulatory compliance capabilities across international markets. The London office of Meridian Pharmaceuticals wants to schedule a presentation for next week, Sarah reported, her enthusiasm infectious despite the early hour. They're specifically interested in our FDA compliance frameworks and how we've adapted them for European regulatory environments. This could establish us as the premier global consulting firm for pharmaceutical digital marketing. The opportunity represented exactly the kind of strategic breakthrough that transformed successful regional businesses into internationally recognized consulting organizations. Meridian Pharmaceuticals was a multinational corporation whose partnership would provide credibility and market access that could generate dozens of additional clients seeking similar expertise for navigating complex regulatory environments while implementing sophisticated digital marketing strategies. Marcus emerged from the bedroom as I was concluding the call with Sarah, his appearance disheveled and his expression confused about why I was conducting business conversations at such an early hour. His understanding of professional work remained limited to traditional office schedules and conventional business practices that didn't accommodate international time zones or urgent client communications requiring immediate response. "Another early morning meeting?" Marcus asked, his tone carrying the familiar note of disapproval that had become standard whenever my work schedule conflicted with his expectations about appropriate boundaries between professional and personal time. His question revealed continued inability to understand that successful business operations required flexibility and responsiveness that extended beyond traditional 9-to-5 constraints. "International client presentation," I replied simply, choosing not to elaborate about the multi-million-dollar opportunity that would require intensive preparation and coordination with team members across multiple continents. The explanation would have triggered additional questions about the scope of my business operations that Marcus remained psychologically unprepared to comprehend or accept. Marcus moved through his morning routine with mechanical precision, apparently processing the events of the previous evening in ways that reinforced his conviction about being justified in addressing family issues through public commentary. His ability to maintain self-righteousness after committing such obvious violations of social appropriateness and marital loyalty suggested psychological defense mechanisms that prevented accurate assessment of his own behavior and its consequences. "I've been thinking about what happened last night," Marcus said as he prepared his breakfast with characteristic attention to nutritional optimization. His tone suggested that overnight reflection had strengthened rather than undermined his confidence. about the appropriateness of using Jennifer's wedding reception to air grievances about family responsibility and financial contribution. Have you? I replied, maintaining neutral tone while mentally organizing the documentation that would soon transform his understanding of family financial dynamics and personal achievement. The conversation was providing perfect context for revealing information that would systematically demolish every assumption underlying his public accusations about my employment status and economic contributions. Marcus continued outlining his perspective on family obligations and mutual support while demonstrating complete ignorance about the fact that his wife had been providing exactly the kind of financial stability and professional success he claimed to value. His lecture about personal responsibility and shared sacrifice was being delivered to someone whose business achievements exceeded his own by orders of magnitude, creating irony that transcended mere misunderstanding and approached cosmic absurdity. I think I need to schedule a family meeting to address some of these issues more directly, Marcus said, his voice carrying the authority of someone who believed his wedding speech had identified legitimate problems requiring systematic resolution. The suggestion that our marriage needed family intervention to address my supposed failures provided the perfect opportunity to present evidence that would reverse every assumption about contribution and dependency. That's an excellent idea. I agreed, surprising Marcus with my enthusiastic support for his proposal. His confusion about my positive response was understandable given his expectation that I would resist family scrutiny of my employment status and financial contributions. Complete transparency about family finances seems like exactly what's needed to resolve these concerns. The confidence in my voice apparently caught Marcus off guard, though he interpreted my agreement as submission to his authority rather than anticipation of revelations that would transform his understanding of our relationship dynamics. His satisfaction about my apparent willingness to accept family intervention demonstrated remarkable inability to consider alternative explanations for my cooperative attitude. Marcus left for Henderson and Associates with obvious satisfaction about his wedding speech and plans for addressing family issues through systematic discussion of employment expectations and financial responsibilities. His departure provided the privacy necessary for organizing documentation that would serve as the foundation for completely restructuring family conversations about professional achievement and economic contribution. I spent the morning preparing a comprehensive presentation of Phoenix Digital Solutions' financial performance, client relationships, and strategic positioning within the digital marketing industry. The materials included revenue summaries, client testimonials, industry recognition, and competitive analysis that demonstrated not only the success of my business but also its significance within the broader Phoenix professional community. The pharmaceutical contract documentation was particularly impressive, showing detailed performance metrics and client satisfaction scores that exceeded industry standards while generating revenue streams that dwarfed traditional marketing agency engagements. The international expansion opportunities represented additional growth potential that would establish Phoenix Digital Solutions as a recognized leader in specialized consulting services for regulated industries. Sarah arrived at our apartment at noon to help coordinate the presentation materials and provide professional perspective on the most effective way to communicate complex business achievements to audiences unfamiliar with digital marketing industry standards and entrepreneurial success metrics. Her experience with corporate communications and strategic planning made her invaluable for ensuring that our documentation would be comprehensible and convincing to family members whose understanding of business operations remained limited to traditional employment models. This is going to completely shock them, Sarah observed as we reviewed financial summaries that showed Phoenix Digital Solutions generating more monthly revenue than most traditional businesses achieved annually. Her assessment was accurate, though it underestimated the psychological impact of discovering that their assumptions about my character and contributions had been not just wrong but diametrically opposite to reality. Marcus returned home that evening with news that he had successfully arranged a family meeting for the following weekend, scheduled at Robert and Linda's house to provide neutral territory for addressing what he continued to characterize as legitimate concerns about family financial responsibilities and employment expectations. His excitement about the opportunity to systematically address these issues demonstrated continued confidence that documentation would support rather than contradict his accusations about my professional status. Everyone agreed that it's important to have honest conversations about family contributions and shared responsibilities, Marcus reported as he changed out of his work clothes with obvious satisfaction about his organizational achievements. His ability to convince family members to participate in intervention proceedings reflected persuasive skills that would have been admirable if applied to accurate understanding of circumstances requiring intervention. The week passed quickly. As I continued managing Phoenix Digital Solutions operations while preparing for what would undoubtedly be the most significant family meeting in our relationship history. The pharmaceutical campaign continued exceeding performance targets, the European expansion opportunities progressed through preliminary negotiations, and 3 additional Fortune 500 companies submitted requests for proposals based on referrals from satisfied clients. Marcus spent the week organizing his thoughts about family responsibilities and developing what he described as constructive approaches to addressing employment issues and financial planning challenges. His systematic preparation for confronting my supposed professional failures demonstrated analytical skills that would have been impressive if directed toward accurate assessment of actual circumstances rather than fictional narratives about dependency and contribution. Saturday afternoon arrived with crystalline desert sunshine that seemed to promise clarity and revelation. Marcus dressed with particular care for the family meeting, choosing his most professional attire to project authority and credibility while discussing serious family issues that required mature resolution through honest communication and systematic problem solving. I prepared my presentation materials with equal attention to detail, organizing documentation into logical sequences that would systematically reveal the scope of Phoenix Digital Solutions' success while demonstrating the magnitude of Marcus's miscalculation about our family's financial dynamics. The evidence was overwhelming and undeniable, presented in formats that even skeptical audiences would find impossible to dismiss or minimize. Robert and Linda had prepared their living room for what they understood would be a serious discussion about family responsibilities and marriage dynamics, arranging seating to encourage open communication while maintaining comfortable atmosphere for potentially difficult conversations. Their obvious concern about family discord was touching, though their assumptions about the nature of underlying problems were about to be completely overturned. Jennifer and Michael arrived early, their presence demonstrating family solidarity and support for addressing issues that had been inappropriately aired during their wedding reception. Their willingness to participate in family intervention reflected maturity and commitment to relationship preservation, though they remained as ignorant as everyone else about the actual circumstances that had motivated Marcus's public accusations. Marcus began the meeting with carefully prepared remarks about the importance of honest communication and shared responsibility within family relationships, his tone carrying conviction that reflected genuine belief in the validity of his concerns about my employment status and financial contributions. His presentation was articulate and systematic, demonstrating preparation and thoughtfulness that would have been persuasive if based on accurate information. The issue we need to address, Marcus said with authority, is the pattern of financial dependency that has developed in our marriage, where one person works consistently while the other treats employment as optional and expects someone else to handle real financial responsibilities. His accusation was delivered with confidence that suggested extensive preparation and family support for confronting what he genuinely believed were legitimate relationship problems. The family nodded in agreement with his characterization of marriage dynamics and financial responsibilities, their response reflecting shared values about personal contribution and mutual support that made Marcus's accusations seem reasonable and justified. Their collective support for his position was about to be transformed into embarrassment and disbelief as documentation revealed the actual scope of professional achievement and economic contribution within our marriage. I think everyone deserves to understand exactly how family finances have been managed and who has been contributing what to our household expenses and long-term financial security, I said calmly, removing the first section of documentation from my presentation portfolio. The confidence in my voice apparently surprised family members who had expected defensive responses or emotional appeals rather than systematic presentation of financial evidence. Marcus looked momentarily confused by my willingness to engage with his accusations through detailed financial disclosure, though he interpreted my cooperative attitude as acknowledgement of the validity of his concerns rather than anticipation of revelations that would completely reverse his position. His satisfaction about my apparent submission to family scrutiny was about to be replaced by shock and humiliation as evidence contradicted every assumption underlying his public attack on my character. Let's start with basic revenue information, I continued, placing the first financial summary on the coffee table where everyone could examine it clearly. The document showed Phoenix Digital Solutions' monthly revenue figures for the previous 12 months, with totals that exceeded Marcus's annual salary by substantial margins that made his accusations about financial dependency appear absurdly ironic. The silence that followed was absolute as family members processed information that contradicted their fundamental understanding of our relationship dynamics and economic circumstances. The numbers were so dramatically different from their expectations that initial responses ranged from confusion to disbelief, with several people checking the documentation multiple times to ensure they were interpreting the figures correctly. "This shows your business generating over $200,000 monthly," Robert said slowly, his voice reflecting genuine confusion about how such substantial income could have remained invisible during years of family conversations about employment and financial planning. The accountant in Marcus was beginning to grasp the mathematical implications even as his psychological defense mechanisms resisted accepting information that contradicted his accusations. "That's correct," I confirmed, placing additional documentation on the table that showed quarterly summaries, annual totals, and tax filings that provided official verification of income levels that transformed every assumption about our family's financial circumstances. Phoenix Digital Solutions has been profitable since its second year of operation and has shown consistent growth that positioned us as one of the leading digital marketing consultancies in the Southwest. Marcus stared at the documentation with the expression of someone whose fundamental understanding of reality was being systematically dismantled through presentation of evidence that couldn't be dismissed or rationalized away. His face had gone pale as the magnitude of his miscalculation became clear, revealing not just ignorance about my professional achievements but complete misunderstanding of our marriage's economic foundation. "The pharmaceutical contract we signed last month," I continued, removing additional documentation that showed the scope of our international business relationships, "is worth $1.2 million over 18 months, with performance bonuses that could increase total value to nearly $2 million if we achieve projected targets." The figure hung in the air like an accusation, transforming Marcus's speech about unemployed burdens and financial dependency into evidence of his own professional limitations and psychological inability to comprehend entrepreneurial success. Jennifer was crying silently as she realized that her wedding reception had been used to publicly humiliate someone whose business achievements exceeded their entire family's combined lifetime earnings. "But why didn't you tell us?" Linda asked, her voice breaking as she struggled to reconcile the documentation with years of assumptions about my employment status and professional capabilities. Her question reflected genuine confusion about how such substantial business success could have remained hidden during countless family conversations about career development and financial planning. "Because I believed that maintaining privacy about business success was more important than receiving recognition for financial achievement," I replied simply. "I thought that supporting our family's lifestyle and financial security was more valuable than public acknowledgement of who was actually providing that support." The explanation revealed the psychological generosity that had enabled Marcus's public attack while protecting family relationships from the discomfort of confronting economic disparities and professional achievement gaps. My decision to maintain anonymity about business success had created conditions that allowed ignorance to flourish into active hostility and public humiliation. Marcus remained silent as family members processed the implications of discovering that their intervention was based on completely false assumptions about financial dependency and professional contribution. His inability to speak reflected not just embarrassment about his wedding speech but fundamental psychological crisis as core beliefs about our relationship were systematically destroyed by undeniable evidence. The pharmaceutical performance metrics were particularly devastating, showing client satisfaction scores and business results that established Phoenix Digital Solutions as a recognized leader in specialized consulting services. The success was measurable and substantial, representing exactly the kind of professional achievement that Marcus claimed to value while demonstrating capabilities that exceeded anything available through traditional corporate employment. As the family meeting concluded with apologies, expressions of amazement, and requests for forgiveness, Marcus finally found his voice to acknowledge the magnitude of his error in judgment and character assessment. His recognition that he had publicly attacked his wife for failing to contribute while she was actually funding their entire lifestyle represented personal humiliation that would require years to process and overcome. "I don't know how to apologize for what I said at the wedding," Marcus said quietly, his voice carrying genuine shame about accusations that had been revealed as not just wrong but cruelly ironic. The man who had lectured about family responsibility and financial contribution was confronting evidence that his wife had been providing exactly the professional success and economic stability he claimed to value. 6 months later, Phoenix Digital Solutions had expanded into European markets, established partnerships with 3 Fortune 500 companies, and generated enough revenue to purchase a substantial home in Paradise Valley while maintaining offices in both Phoenix and London. Marcus had resigned from Henderson & Associates to join my company as Chief Financial Officer, applying his analytical skills to managing the complex financial operations of a multi-million-dollar consulting organization. Our marriage had survived his public humiliation and my revelation, rebuilt on foundations of honesty and mutual respect rather than assumptions and hidden achievements. The man who had called me an unemployed burden had learned to appreciate The entrepreneur whose success had quietly revolutionized their financial future while he remained focused on modest corporate advancement. The woman who had built a digital marketing empire while being dismissed as a financial dependent had finally received recognition for achievements that exceeded everyone's expectations, proving that success often remains invisible until circumstances force its revelation through dramatic confrontation with ignorance and prejudice. Up next, you've got 2 more standout stories right on your screen. If this one hit the mark, you won't want to pass these up. Just click and check them out.